of this weekend's full moon in Aquarius is dynamic. That's actually an understatement. This is one of the most interesting full moon charts that I've seen. I'm excited to break it down and talk about it with you today. There really is something of a turning point this weekend. So, first, let's talk about the full moon itself, the moon and the sun, the axis that this full moon is happening on. We have our full moon in Aquarius here, and of course, our sun in Leo across the way, and that gives us this full moon. My hope, as always, is that if you are studying astrology and following along with the chart is helpful for you, that's helpful for you. And if you just want to listen to the astrology and enjoy that, that this video will work for you too. That's always my intention. So there's a lot else going on in this chart. We will get to this kite pattern here in just a minute, but I want to start with the full moon itself, which is actually standing apart from the other things that are going on in the sky at this time. So, one thing that I really love about the Leo Aquarius axis when we're working with that is the sort of self-love and authenticity themes that come up. These signs signify that we're grappling with expressing ourselves in those ways. So Aquarius is sort of just detached enough from the need to please that Aquarius can be very, very authentic sign. And then Leo can seem, a shadow side could be that those a Leo signatures could seem like the focus is always on them, but they don't even necessarily always want the focus on them. It just, the spotlight, they tend to sort of be leading the way, whether they want to be or not. People are sort of looking to them. But their leadership, the focus on them comes from this deep understanding of the importance of expressing yourself authentically in this world. It comes from a place of self-love, of understanding I'm here, I'm meant to be here to express myself and to be who I'm really meant to be. And I love myself enough that I'm going to do that. And so I think whenever I'm looking at this axis, whenever we're talking about a full moon here, that's something that I want to mention. Also, any full moon can bring clarity, right? Any full moon can sort of illuminate something, show us something that we didn't know. And with this axis and with Leo shining the light, it can often be about yourself. And it can also be about where you're a fit and where you're not now. We can sort of see those places where we really feel like we belong, and we can also see those places where we sort of no longer do. And that's sort of coming from that place of self-love as well. So there's some tension that could come up at this time between wanting to be recognized by others, wanting others to see us and to be seen, and also a need for independence. This axis sort of struggles with that. There is that pull towards independence, but also themes around sort of wanting to be seen can come up. And I think that is part of why we're grappling with where we fit and where we don't. We can sort of really appreciate where we're being seen, where it's a fit, where it's not, and that desire for belonging and for recognition pulls us into a process where we're thinking all of this through. Good morning, Priscilla. I'm so glad to see you. Thank you so much for being here. Sometimes I wait until the end of the live to check the chat because I don't want to disrupt the process, the explanation. And I know sometimes when I'm watching lives, it can be frustrating when people go back and forth too much. So my apologies if I've missed a chat in the past, or if I don't respond when you're reaching out to me in the chat. I appreciate all of you so much, and I will do my best always to at least check the chat at the end and respond to everybody. Sometimes something is happening here where I have to get off a bit suddenly, and that's the only time I would miss it. So I appreciate all of you so, so much. Okay, so something else that might come up with this full moon is just a busy, active mind, a racing mind, a lot of mental activity. And that also has to do with this grand trine in air, which we will talk about in a second. But that's a part of it, for sure. But what I love about Aquarius in particular, another thing that I love about Aquarius in particular is, and this energy that's active for all of us at this time is Aquarian based, doesn't matter what sign you are, is that while there is that busyness mentally, there also, the energy is very cool and very clear and very calm. So it's like we can have a racing mind this weekend. You can have a lot of thoughts, a lot sort of going on, a lot changing, a lot moving, as we'll discuss. But I think there's something about it being a full moon in Aquarius that brings a calmness, a coolness, and a clarity that really helps us to navigate the complexity effectively. So I wanted to mention that as well. Let's see. Okay, I think that we can move on and talk about this amazing Mars configuration. Let's call it a Mars configuration because I think that's probably the easiest way to say it. I'm just going to run really quickly through what we have going on here. So here we have Mars, who's just entered Libra. And because we have so many planets at early degrees, it's doing the most. So Mars is in opposition to Saturn and Neptune. And normally I would worry a little bit more about a Mars-Saturn opposition in terms of conflict or challenges with others. But I think both of these planets, it's almost like even though Mars and Saturn are sort of in a fight with each other, they're having a little problem, they're both in really good moods. That's one way I was sort of looking at this. They're just so well, like they're so well aspected. There's so much nice stuff going on for both of them that I think it's okay. So Mars is a part, now not just of this opposition, but of a grand trine with Uranus here newly in Gemini and Pluto here in Aquarius, talking about outer planets now. And we do have this outer planet triangle that's present all summer, that this Mars is sort of igniting, sort of setting aloft. I'm going to actually turn back and I'm going to go really quickly through some notes about this outer planet triangle and this Mars. That's the easiest way to do it. So this outer planet triangle that's happening right now, this minor trine, a wedge, let's start with just that. And it is something that we've had our eye on for years. It's something we've been talking about forever. So taking Mars out of the equation, here, let me sort of change the graphic so it's a little more clear where we are right now. It is a little, I always think that I hope that these visuals help, but sometimes they get to be a little bit too much, especially during these lives where I'm doing it all at once and it's just layered, layered, layered on top of itself. And so I hope that it's not becoming too much. When I look at the chart, it sort of seems like it is, but that's this dynamic nature of this weekend. It really is extra special. So we have this minor, we have this outer planet triangle, I've been calling it, that's present with us all summer. And this is actually something that we've had our eye on as a big moment astrologically for quite a while. Um, what's happening here with this planet, with these outer planets being involved, signifies a big change in eras, sort of in the collective, in the larger world. And then as personal planets connect with it, um, it comes down into our lives more and more, and we co-create with it and change what's happening in the world too. So it's something that's showing up in our lives for sure, but also uh, this is about the collective when we're talking outer planets. This is about what's happening around us. Oh, hello. Thank you, Laura. I just saw your comment that you feel that they help. And I appreciate that. I'm glad I try for them to be helpful, but sometimes they can go a little far. So I try to keep it simple. But there's actually more I could say about this chart that we're not even discussing. We're not really going to talk about the Saturn-Neptune conjunction retrograde at 1 degree of Aries in and of itself. I actually do try to keep it simple. I'm saving Jupiter and Venus for their conjunction for Monday's report. So as much as the chart looks crazy, I'm glad that it's still helpful if you're following along with that. And I try to keep it simple, but some periods of time are just harder than others. And I'm really not just saying it when I say that this is one of the most dynamic full moon charts I've seen. It's really something. And everything that we're doing right now is really new because of these outer planets changing signs and being at these early degrees. So we're really just getting a preview of this summer. We're spending some time with these planets here, but there will be it will break up, starting with Uranus re-entering Taurus on September 1st. And then by the end of 2025, it almost might feel more like 2024. We're going to be working on some old themes and wrapping them up before these planets move back into this formation and hold for quite a while in 2026. So one thing I will say really quickly here that I haven't said before, I know in some ways some of this is in my horoscopes and these things are ongoing. So I do tend to use the same notes sometimes and go back over things we've already talked about. But one thing that I haven't said at all is I think it's interesting the way that Saturn is kind of pulling this triangle out of formation when it breaks up. It actually starts with Saturn moving retrograde into Pisces. And Saturn isn't really a part of the triangle, but you also can't remove Saturn's energy from what's going on with Neptune right now, right? So Saturn moving into Pisces is really the beginning of pulling this apart. And I just think that's interesting. Like Saturn's like, you've got responsibilities. You have some things that you still need to take care of back here before we can really move into this era. You need to go get this done. I feel like that pull is interesting with Saturn starting. But, this is all very future focused. This is very much about a new era. And it's not like it's all formed yet and we know what it's going to be. We're all creating it as we go. And so it's a little hard to talk about, but there are a few things I can say. Neptune sort of blurs things and Pluto sort of buries things. So it is a tough triangle to be able to understand well. We have to live it a little bit as we go. But there's a few things I think I can say. So there's something about a change of power dynamics, of systems, of authority, of how things are sort of structured in this way. One example of that is sort of celebrity culture to, individuals having access to an audience. Some real changes there. I think also advancements in technology, large, quick impressive advancements in technology is potentially a part of this. I think we're going to be seeing some real changes in the way that we learn, students, in school and adults, different ways of thinking, different ways of communicating, coming into play with this. And with the Aries energy too, there's just something very new about all of it, and sort of bold and sort of young. So that's what I have to say about the outer planet triangle for now. Mars this weekend is sort of igniting it. And it's interesting for Mars to come into this formation because it could, other planets are doing it when they enter the sign too, but Mars is sort of extra about launching something, about doing something, about being active. I think that this is like, this new era is sort of coming, ready or not. Excuse me. So we're not just sort of dreaming about this future idea anymore. We may be sort of trying it on. We're not really living this new era yet either, because it is all about to break up. But this weekend, it might feel like we're kind of trying on this new thing and getting a little aware of it. Mars in Libra really considers other people. Mars in Libra will fight for peace, right? Which sounds funny, but it's sort of the person in the room saying, stop yelling, or I don't actually have a good analogy for this, but it's off the top of my head, but it's that fighting for peace, fighting for harmony, fighting for everybody to get along. So there's some element of that here, but I think what it is as we're forming this outer planet triangle, starting to step into this new era, we may find ourselves this weekend thinking as well about how we can stay peaceful, prioritizing peace and harmony and calm, and realizing how important it is to be that way, and actually creating systems, checks, ideas for how we're going to stay more peaceful and harmonious as we step into this new place. This is a great weekend to be taking intentional steps towards where you want to go. Now is not really a time for random actions. It's a time to be very pointed, very intentional. I feel like this chart looks intentional and pointed and forward thinking. This air sign energy, Mars, Pluto, Uranus, alliances can get a boost. Good alliances, good connections between people, especially where new ideas, fresh innovations are involved. Also, this isn't a time where you can always see the big picture, right? You don't necessarily see where all of this is going, where all of it is heading. This isn't a completion aspect. And Aries energy, which is deeply involved in this, really doesn't even care about completing things or knowing where it's going. This is an activation energy. This is a time for starting, certainly for being intentional and for being in solid, strong alliances, for prioritizing harmony and peace as you move forward. So normally I would be more concerned about that Mars opposing Saturn, but I think there's a lot of good here that's mitigating that challenge. It is sort of like, I just like all these positive aspects, and it is sort of like they're having a little conflict. They're sort of fighting with each other, but they're both in good moods while they're doing it, so it doesn't really turn too bad. Often oppositions, especially involving Mars and Saturn, can manifest as in our world, they can be sort of personified. The planets end up personified. They're people around us. So you could encounter a Mars or a Saturn. It can show up as sort of a conflict between two people. So you could find yourself in some sort of challenge. There might be one person who's personifying that Mars and Libra, maybe fighting, but fighting for peace. And there might be sort of this Saturn in Aries energy, which can show up as authority, can show up as anger. There's a certain like block to it, a real blocking energy, like a hard stop energy, taking responsibility. So that could sort of show up, but it's almost like while those two people are having a conflict, everybody's kind of in a good mood, so it blows over pretty easily. I'm actually not that worried about this Mars-Saturn opposition. And you know what? We do have this Venus-Jupiter conjunction coming together too, and it's active now. They're within a few degrees of each other. The Mars-Saturn opposition happens first, so I do think that's more the dominant energy this weekend. But as we go into next week, this Venus-Jupiter conjunction is exact, and so I think that that's really active this weekend too, and just helping everything to be a little bit more emotional, caring, nurturing, protective, but we will talk about that more on Monday. Also, I basically fully explain all of this and using the notes that I just used here in part in my August horoscopes. You might want to check those out, and it shows where this is falling for you in your chart. Those are best viewed for your rising sign. And I'm also going to attach some videos here at the end about why it's best viewed for your rising sign, and why we might be hesitant sometimes to watch videos by our rising sign, because often we don't really identify with the ascendant. So I'm going to attach those two videos here. I think that I've seen all of the comments. I'm so grateful for all of you being here, all of you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful weekend.